but this has shaken them for sure. So it'll take a while for them to feel comfortable in their homes. Fortunately, the person who caused it has been caught and will be dealt with by the courts. Does anyone want to add anything?
No.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. I would just like to conclude or concur with the comments that you've made and with what Brent and Nikki said in their newsletter. Very much appreciated, and I'm very proud of the various services that we provide. Thank you.
Yes.
Fran, it's Brent. Thank you for your leadership. These are difficult times, and I think that we can take a great deal of solace from the leadership that you're showing as mayor. So, I think Nikki would concur. We're very grateful for what you're doing in your role.
It certainly has been a media frenzy, but again, you talk to them and tell them all kinds of stuff, and then they show one little tiny clip. The one thing is the people that want to talk to you at 10 after 6 in the morning. That's kind of new for me, getting up at 5:30. I really don't like it, but I've done it this last couple of days. Anyhow, we all need to keep our ear to the ground and see if we need to help out with any member of the community. Other than those remarks, I think that's it for me. Deputy Mayor, do you have any remarks?
No, I don't, Fran.
Okay, then let's move on. There's no deferred items. So staff reports, development services is our first report. And I have a motion moved by Sherry Wong, seconded by Cindy Kelsey, that council receive the construction details May 2020 report prepared by the CBO for information. Discussion on the report?
I just had a comment, Your Worship. I was wondering, Andy, how difficult is it to drill down and get the number of permits issued by district? I was just curious to know where the growth is.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor. We could break the report down to the 4 different districts. I can't speak to that right now, but I could say for the next meeting, have a report done that way.
I was just looking at the numbers, the dollars, but I was just looking. I was just curious to know where the growth is, Andy. That's all.
Especially the year to date, right? Those numbers?
Exactly. That's right, Your Worship.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. I have a question for Andy. Given the trend that's happening in this construction thing, to see that we're well over $2 million more than we were at this time last year, do you anticipate any effort or any issues in regard to keep up with the inspections? If this trend continues, we're going to see a huge increase, and I'm just wondering what kind of stress that's going to put on a department in regard to what you say, meeting timelines.
Yeah, if it was to continue like this, I am really busy. I don't know. It's hard to say what the trend is going to be. If probably depends on whether if people are running out of money, if they're not working, it may go down. But if people start moving from the cities to the country, it could continue to increase. We'll just have to wait and see.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The only thing I was going to say in that, the numbers, like the number of permits issued year over year is actually down, but the dollars, it looks like we're building more expensive. So, I don't know if that means more workload because of the dollars, but the number of actual inspections would probably be pretty consistent, I would think, Andy.
Yeah, if the permits numbers stay the same, the amount of inspections should stay fairly close to the same. Yeah, it is for sure. There's a lot of nice homes being on the water in the township.
Andy, it's Brent. Not a question that I'm expecting an answer to today, but something maybe looking forward. I think that we are on the cusp of a trend. COVID may have pushed things where there are going to be a lot of people who may decide that they're going to have their seasonal residence become their permanent residence. They may be able to telecommute and such. So I'm just wondering if there is some means in the future to just some stats that we would have in terms of any trend of seasonal units being winterized and made all season, and any of the pressures that come from that. Clearly, if people are choosing to be here all year round, they may be accessing roads which are normally only used in the summer. I'm just wondering if there's if this trend goes, it's going to have a knock-on effect on a lot of things beyond construction values and permits. So I'm wondering if there may be an opportunity in the coming weeks to get a sense of what we might be looking at.
Yeah, it's difficult to judge that because a lot of people that do winterize their cottage and make it their year-round home don't always get permits for it, and it's hard for me to tell whether they're using it year-round or not. But if they get permits, I could track it by the amount of permits, but I can only recall probably one for this year that was converting a seasonal to year-round.
Andy, is it not true that most people now don't build for a season? They build for a permanent structure. It's how they use it.
I would. It's probably in my report there how many seasonals. We've got new seasonals year to date 7, new residential units year to date 7. So it's about 50-50.
But what's the difference in the build? Do they still insulate? It's still winterized?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A seasonal dwelling doesn't require any insulation. It doesn't require plumbing. It doesn't require much of anything other than basically 4 walls, a floor, and a roof.
Sort of the old-fashioned cottage.
Yeah.
They still build those. I wasn't sure they did.
There is a few of them going on.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Mayor, Bill here again to Andy. When you're doing, you have 7 new residential units and 7 new seasonal units. If you're doing a full-fledged home, would not the number of inspections that you would have to attend to be greater than if someone was just putting an addition on or something to that effect, or renovation?
Yes, Bill. A new home would require probably a minimum of at least 7 inspections, if not more, because a lot of times, they may have the main floor finished, but need to get drywalling on it, but may not have the basement finished, which would mean another trip, to look at the framing or insulation in the basement. So it just varies from job to job, and
right. That's what I was concerned about, because today the interest rates are now available. Have been a historical low. And so I think I concur with Councillor Cameron's position is that we, in actual fact, may have more people moving from the urban areas as a result of the virus, looking to relocate to the rural areas. So my feeling is that I think we should really watch this file, because it may be overburdened a little bit in regard to having been able to keep up. So that's just my observation, and just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure Andy will tell us if it's getting to be too much. Any other comments on the motion? The motion is to accept the report for information. there anyone voting against? Motion's carried. Okay. Next, we have a motion moved by Victor, seconded by Bill. Whereas Section 7.4 of the Ontario Building Code Act, OBCA, requires a municipality to publish an annual report on fees every 12 months. And whereas the purpose of this report is to illustrate the building permits collected do not exceed the expenditures to administer the Ontario Building Code Section 7.2 of OBCA. And whereas our municipal permit fee revenue for 2019 is papers are really loud, exceeded the expenses by $792. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council accept the report entitled Provincially Legislated Annual Report on Building Permit Fees 2019 as prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, and further that council directs staff to put the report on the website. Discussions? No discussion. Is there anyone voting against the motion? Seeing none, motion's carried. Okay. Motion moved by Elwin Burke, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council receive the report entitled Facilities Overview as prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, for information. Discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a question. The concerns about the fence at the Parham ball field. The rec committee has volunteered to take that fence down. It's has very many safety hazards. When the fence was put up, it was never finished, as Andy has said in his report. The ties to the poles are the twist kind. They're still sticking out about 1.5 to 2 inches. So anybody walking along it or running as a young child would, it's a safety hazard to being cut. The bars where all the gates open up to, there's too much space between the bars hanging there. Again, a safety hazard for a young child running at full tilt speed to get to the climber. Yes, it may be a waste of money by taking it down, but the rec committee feels very strongly that it should not stay.
I guess we need to hear from Andy. Can the fence in fact be made safe?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it can be made safe. I know it has been dragging on for quite some time. I guess the question is if it's needed, or it was my understanding that it was requested to be put there for the safety of the children from running out across in front of traffic. We do have the supplies to replace those ties. There's bands with bolts that go through them that should be holding the ends of the fences posts, but I guess I'm just looking for direction on whether it is really needed. If it's not needed and the rec committee doesn't want it there, then it can be removed. But if it's a safety concern without it there, then I think we should either finish it or maybe redo it in a straight line rather than a curve.
Okay, so I guess that's the number one question is it safe for those kids without a fence?
I think, Madam Mayor, with the parking lot being able to be used at the old fire hall and the already larger parking lot, there's not many cars that are driving around in front of the canteen. So that was where their concern was running from the ball field in front of the canteen up to the playground. And due to the lower number of cars, it wouldn't be neat as required anymore as to as it was 5 years ago.
If I could through you, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
I just wanted to say I am really relieved that the ball field is getting some attention to the fence. But I agree with Nikki. From what I've seen, it is a huge safety issue and has been for some time. Do you think maybe meeting with the chair of the rec committee, Nikki, do you think that's a good idea to maybe meet with Bob and see if if Andy was fixing it and putting it, making it safe, if they'd still rather have it taken down? Or
I think there's some frustration about it, the job not being finished. And I don't blame them for saying either do it right or take it down. But again, we put it there to keep kids safe. So maybe we should make the fence safe. Nikki, what do you think?
Oh, I agree. If it can be made safe, then by all means keep it. But like right now, it's an eyesore still, for lack of a better description. There is a tremendous frustration over it. I'm just not sure if it can be made safe. Like you would have to take parts of it down, correct, Andy, and start fresh to fix it.
To fix the looks of it, probably some of the posts would have to be moved and yeah.
Madam Mayor, may I interject here in the fact that the additional parking space is away from the ball field? Would it make sense to restrict the traffic going through there in a way that while there's a ball game going on or some other festivity on the ball diamond where children might be running, that we don't allow any parking over in that area, so they shouldn't be going through? I may be wrong. I'm just trying to be observant from a distance here.
But at fair time, I believe the cars do go around there over to the school parking lot. At least the last couple of times I was at the fair, they went that way, which is just in front of the playground equipment.
Right. But is it during the ball games or is it during the fairground or fair days that you're concerned about?
Well, I think they're concerned about any time there's vehicles and kids.
Absolutely. I agree.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. Can I make a suggestion? Right now, because of what we're going through, there are restrictions in terms of using public property. I think we all agree that the fence as it stands is not really serving what we want. I think that it really needs to have to be done over again. The 90-degree corners that Andy is suggesting, I think that's a good idea. If it has to come down in the interim, that might not be a bad idea. There's not going to be that much activity, and we know that the fair is not going to occur this year. That also gives us an opportunity to put some money in the budget going forward, so we can maybe budget to have a new fence put in. You know, we could consider having a contractor come in and do it. And, you know, I think that's something we could look at. I don't know how much of the existing materials can be reused, but maybe if Andy could explore the options on that. If this could be a 2021 expenditure, you know, we don't have the, you know, and granted, we don't have the money right now, but that might not be the case next year.
I guess the question though, Brent, is what do we do this year? Do we take the fence down so that once the kids start getting back into using play structures, or do we try to fix it this year?
Can I just ask a question here? Is that ball field used still?
oh yes,
Well, then
Not
why
right-
would then
Not
why
right
would we?
now with COVID, but it will be as soon as we open up.
Okay, that's my point. But then why would we tear the fence down? Ball fields normally have a curved fence anyway, because if you in the outfield, you don't want the balls going all over the place, and you sure don't want kids running across the ball field when the game's on. So I don't see the reason why we would tear this fence down.
Different fence though, Tom. There's the ball field is fenced and the play structure is across the road from the ball field, up on the hill.
Okay, all right.
That's where the fence is.
if I could, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry, I tend to agree that I think there's been a lot of frustration. I think this fence has been a problem for quite some time. I think we do need to do something. I either yes, take it completely down and next year put some money in the budget, but at the very least, I think we need to do something about it.
To make it safe.
Yes.
Andy, can you do it this year?
We can try finishing it off in its current location. And, you know, we have the material to do it. It just haven't had the time, the manpower to do it.
Is that something students could help with?
It would probably only be a few more days. A student probably could help with it. I guess we could finish it off, and if the rec committee still isn't happy with it, then maybe look at replacing it next year.
I think that's what we should do. We should finish it off, make it safe, deal with the issues that have been pointed out, and see if it will work.
Okay.
Do you agree that's what we should do?
Yes, the only other question I have is, seeing as we're going to clean off the hill going down into the parking lot by the old fire hall, would we require another side to that fence? Because it's really only two-sided to go to the line fence, the page wire fence. So would we want to enclose it completely behind the old fire hall?
And maybe
Would we want
that's
that material.
maybe that's something to go into the budget for next year if we can't afford to do that this year.
Agreed.
Okay. Is that the direction we're going to ask Andy to do?
I concur. Bill here, Madam Mayor.
Sherry?
Yes.
Nikki?
Yes.
Okay. I think, Andy, it's up to you.
Okay, we'll try and finish it off, and we'll look at fencing the rest of it next year.
Yes. Make it safe so kids don't get their hands caught on wire.
Okay, will do.
Okay. All right, let's move on then. All those in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry. Is there anybody opposing the motion? Seeing none, the motion's carried. Okay. Next, I have a motion moved by Cindy Kelsey and seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas the Manager of Development Services, CBO, has received a request from Community Living North Frontenac for permission to allow a newly constructed access ramp encroach on the road allowance. And whereas the Manager of Public Works and the Manager of Development Services has inspected the site and support the entering into an encroachment agreement is a viable option. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that Council approve of the recommendation of staff to enter into an encroachment agreement with Community Living North Frontenac for the property located at 14352 Road 38 to accommodate the encroachment of the wheelchair ramp onto the road allowance. And further, that Council approves staff to go ahead and prepare the encroachment agreement, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the standard encroachment agreement with Community Living North Frontenac. Victor has excluded himself from any discussion on this. Any discussion?
I agree with that.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, moving right along. Moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. The council received the former Hinchinbrook Public School report as prepared by the Manager of Development Services dated June the 9th, 2020 for information. And further, that council consider information provided in the report, taking into account there is no money set aside in the 2020 budget for this building. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with cleanup and repairs of the former Hinchinbrook Public School.
Is
Discussion.
our internet going glitchy?
No, I think it's somebody moving papers. Again, if you could mute yourself until you go to speak.
And it came up low bandwidth.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we haven't lost anyone. Victor, you're back.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm here.
Okay. Okay, so no discussion on the motion?
Well, I agree with that. We should go ahead and clean up the building and get rid of the asbestos. I'm sorry, somebody cut in there.
Okay.
Anybody here? I feel, and it's Tom here. I feel we should go ahead and clean up the mess in the building and remove the asbestos at the moment. That would be my vote on this thing.
Okay, and that's what the motion says, to clean it up and repair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, Bill here. I'd also love to see included in that is a cleanup and repair, but also secure the building as much as possible so that further vandalism doesn't happen. Thank you.
Well, it's already secured, and there isn't anything else I don't think they can do besides wrapping it in metal bars.
But what about, once again, Madam Mayor, what about some kind of video surveillance that would be there?
They
sign it?
have that. They have that now. Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, we have a motion moved by Nikki Gowdy, seconded by Brent Cameron, that council received the Hinchinbrook Fire Station Parham report as prepared by the Manager of Development Services, CBO, dated June 9th, 2020 for information. And further, that staff have identified four options for council consideration, which are outlined in the report. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with, and we have to pick option 1, 2, 3, or 4. So who wants to start the discussion?
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Sherry.
What does the municipality have stored in that building? Like, is it possible that that be stored at one of the garages, or is there a lot of stuff there?
I think Andy can answer that for us.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a boat stored in there, a parade float, and I believe the rec committee has some material in there.
Would it be possible, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, that stuff be stored at the Wagner Road garage site, and as well, I know we looked at the option of having the rec committee in Mountain Grove Arden store their stuff in we had provided a storage shed for them. Would that be something we could look at as a less expensive alternative?
It's an alternative. I just hate to see a building that could be saved and tore down, but especially if we need the space in the future, maybe Tyson can answer. I don't think he has any extra space to store anything in the public works buildings.
Who does the boat belong to?
That's fire.
No, fire has their own boat. This is a facilities and building department boat.
Oh, sorry.
Could that, through you, Madam Mayor, it's Nikki, could that boat possibly be stored in Piccadilly or stored in Henderson with the two empty buildings that are in pretty decent shape used?
Are those buildings not being used anymore? Are those fire buildings not being used anymore?
The half-ton trucks that were in there have been moved out.
Okay, that's an option for the boat. I think the parade float belongs to the rec committee, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if they,
Well, and that if it's Hinchinbrook Fire that have the parade or did have the parade, they haven't been having them, and I don't think they're planning on future parades. Maybe it's time to sell that or see if another rec committee wants to use it and store it.
It might be the District 3's rec committees. Because that's where it always used to be stored. Remember at the Wagner Road garage, but it might be the district, also districts. So we should check as to whose it is.
Yeah, I have no idea. But again, is
Mhm.
there not a barn or something that we could store this stuff in besides a building that's moldy and falling down roof and everything else?
Yeah, I think the thing is too, is if we can find out if it's the also district recreation committees, maybe it can be stored in somebody else, that has some storage then and not necessarily be in a municipal building.
Can I speak to you, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
So it says that it's $28,000 to demolish the building and it's 26 to fix the roof. Why would you not fix the roof?
The roof is just part of what needs to be repaired. I understand, Andy, there's mold inside.
that 26,000 would fix half the roof and remove the moldy material inside, but the other half of the roof would need to be done in a few years.
So it's not just shingles that the roof needs, it's actual structural repair?
There's probably about 4 sheets of plywood would need to be replaced. I don't think there's any major structural repairs needed.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry, but I was kind of thinking because the building was in such a state that it was no longer being able to be used as a fire department. So is it at all able to store things without contaminating them? Or, I mean, it seems like it's a bigger problem than just the roof, like Madam Mayor said.
The price we got was to basically gut all 3 bays of any moldy material and leave it as unheated storage. It obviously wouldn't be suitable to use as a fire hall, but for storing things, it would be adequate.
I'd just like to make a comment, Your Worship, on this.
Go ahead, Tom.
It looks like we do have a purpose for this particular building, and it makes sense in the long term that we maintain this building. And I am suggesting that we actually go for the steel roof on the building, because from what Andy's report said, that the structure of the building is sound. It's just a bit of mold which we can get rid of. And if this building could be used in the long term for storage purposes for the municipality, I would recommend that we go with the roof. And it seems to me that there would be a purpose for this for the various departments, either public works, fire service, or building, or whoever. But this building will be used down the road. And Andy said to put up a new building is $150,000. I don't see there's any point in tearing this one down or not maintaining it if we're going to down the road, maybe 5 years out, having to put up another building. So I think we should fix it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, it's Brent. I'd like to say the same thing. I agree with Tom. We're looking amongst the 5 options, there's about a span of $10,000 between the cheapest one and the most expensive option. And demolishing the building and having an empty lot is not even the best option. At the end of the day, that 28 grand is going to buy us nothing except an empty lot. So it's cheaper to maintain the building. Having said that, if we are going to maintain the building, it would be nice to do it in such a way that we don't have to revisit this issue in the next 5 to 10 years, as steel roof would make the most sense. And if these costs include the abatement and all of the cleaning up inside, that makes sense as well. I would add to this, though, just so we avoid some of the issues we've had in the past, once we've done this, I think we need to have a serious talk as to how the space is going to be allocated. We've had issues in other districts at other times that the space that we've had for storage, people have not always gotten along in terms of who gets use of what. So I think that once we've done this, we should have a mind toward who's going to be able to use this particular space and how much of it, just so people are not tripping over each other like they have in the past.
Very good idea, Brent.
Yeah, good point, Brent. And put it to their budget for their portion of the space they take up. I agree, 100%.
Tyson here. Can I say something?
Sure.
I think that I totally agree with Brent. I think there is a bit of an issue of who should be using it and who, because initially, and maybe it's because I was still learning how it works here, but the next day after our first meeting, I just had my guys, I pulled all the public works stuff out of there because I didn't even realize we were part of that. And I pulled all our stuff out. Now, that was just a temporary while it was getting figured out. But yeah, we've still got a lot of iron that sits outside that doesn't need to be rusting outside. We've got all the sanders for all the back of the plow, the 3/4 ton plow trucks and 1 ton plow trucks. We've got plows themselves and air compressors, and there's lots of stuff that we could use for unheated storage. Obviously, we haven't budgeted for this year, but I'd be interested in sitting down and figuring out what we need as a township, not just a department.
Madam Mayor, Bill here.
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
There's another consideration in all of this. Doesn't matter how we go about roofing it, but we should secure the roof in one way or the other, even if we only do half the roof at this time, because the other half we can budget for another $5,000 if we go with shingles. What it will do is it'll buy us time. We've been attempting to possibly sell this building if someone comes along, but we can't sell it in the condition it is now. But what it does do is by securing the building and making it viable, even if we went with shingles, we're looking at 25 or 30 years. So over the next 25 or 30 years, there actually may become an opportunity may come our way in which we can actually dispose of this building and return it to get some revenue out of it. In the meantime, we can use it for storage.
Although I think if you'll recall, Bill, there were some planning issues with trying to sell the building.
Yes, I remember those, Madam Mayor, but what I'm saying is if we tore the building down, all options would be off the table.
Oh, sure.
Conditions may change where we could actually maybe rent the building to a viable business or whatever. So, but by removing the building, those options no longer exist. So,
okay, so which option are we picking? I don't have the report in front of me. What are the options and which one do we want to look at?
Madam Mayor, it's Victor here.
Victor, go ahead.
I agree that we need the building. And I think that that's either option 1, 2, or 3. Option number 3 with the steel roof is only $6,000 more than option number 2 of fully shingling. I think let's do the job right. Make that building viable for a long time. Spend a little bit of extra money now, but then we're not going to have to worry about it in the future. That's just my thought.
So that's option 3, Victor?
That's option 3. That's what I would support.
And I support that too, Victor.
Okay. So the mover is Nikki and the seconder is Brent. Would you like me to tick option 3 to be voted on?
Hi, Madam Mayor, it's Brent. I would support option 3.
Nikki?
I would support option 3, and I like what Tyson said. But instead of just looking at this building for storage, would it be possible to look at all vacant buildings in the township and the uses that could be made through public works facility and rec?
Good idea.
Please and thank you.
I'm going to call the motion, and the motion is now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with option number 3. Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Good discussion and work to be done in future. All right, we are moving to Public Works. Moved by Sherry Wine, seconded by Bill McDonald, that council received the Public Works Activity Report as prepared by the Public Works Manager dated June 9th, 2020 for information. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, it's Nikki.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Thank you. Tyson, is it possible to have give council a list of the roads that are getting gravel this year? I know that certain people have been inquiring with me, is my road getting gravel? And I send them your way, but it might be easier to avoid tying you up unnecessarily if we would be able to say yes or no.
Absolutely, I can give you guys a list. Steve just went to see if it's still on his desk right now, and if he gets it in the next 20 or 10 minutes or so, I'll jump back in and I can read it off, or I can just provide it. That's up to you guys.
It might be simpler just to provide it to us, and then we can print it off at home if we wish.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that good, folks?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the report? Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Next motion, moved by Cindy Kelsey and seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas the Public Works Manager is recommending that we purchase a used sidewalk plow sander, as it will provide a more efficient way to plow sidewalks. And whereas the Public Works Supervisor has obtained 3 quotes as per the procedural bylaw. And whereas the Public Works Manager is recommending a quote from Convoy Equipment in the amount of $47,000 before HST be accepted. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to accept the quote from Convoy Equipment for a used sidewalk plow sander in the amount of $47,000 before HST, and further that the Public Works Manager be authorized to obtain a purchase order for the sidewalk plow sander. Discussion?
Bill here, through Madam Mayor, to Public Works, in regard to the quotes that we got, all of these companies quoted, I assume, on the same type of equipment. I read the report in regard to some of them didn't have options on them, but what I'm saying here, these are used equipment. So how many years of service can we expect to get out of these, Tyson? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think with a brand new machine, we were looking at about 20 years. I know it's not a perfect formula, but with the amount of hours on the machine that Steve and I are suggesting, we're looking at still at least getting over half of that. So we're hoping for 10 years of good service, and then obviously monitor closely to make sure that we our spending every year isn't getting exponential.
Follow up, Madam Mayor, to Tyson is in regard to, I was reading your report in regard to some of the options that are available on this equipment, like more and that sort of thing. Was there some expectation that you would put that into service like in other seasons, for example, summer, doing some brushing?
Absolutely. Through you, Madam Mayor, there's lots of options, as you've seen in the report. I wish that we could have the budget to start doing all of that right away, but we're going to take baby steps and be able to do that more and more each season. And the nice thing about the spending the little extra on the one from Convoy or even the one from Cubex is that it does have all those options, and we don't have to buy it all at once. They're very interchangeable. We can even get those used. Or since the time of making this report, I've talked to other townships that say, hey, I got this attachment I might be able to sell you, and I've got this one that we got a really good deal on. So yeah, lots of options there, Bill.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, moving right along.
Madam
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Tyson.
I had trouble sneaking this in because it was just brought to my attention not too long ago from Andy. It was about an hour before the meeting, and I just wanted to, maybe you can just tell me, no, we can't deal with that right now, but for the Charlotte Lake Village project, we've told Cranes Construction they're allowed to use the old schoolyard as a laydown, and we told them they were not allowed to use the tennis court. Now they have that, and that's because we didn't want the fence or the asphalt damaged. But they have asked if they can use if they fix up the gate and the lock, if they can use the tennis court just to put a tent for their workers to get in out of the shade and that kind of thing. So I don't know if I need to formalize this in another meeting or if we can kind of get a little bit of a discussion right now, and feel free to tell me if that's not okay.
I think we can talk about it right now. And my observation would be if they put the tent, they have to pull the grass out of the cracks that are growing. Does anyone have any?
I agree with this request, Madam Mayor. Bill.
Does anybody have any objections to that? It seems pretty logical.
No.
Okay.
I do thank you, Council. Sorry for throwing that in last minute, but the expediting the project by 5 months. There's been some last minute decisions getting made, and thanks for your support. Go ahead, Vic.
And anytime something like that comes up, Tyson, that might hold us up, by all means, let me know. And if we need a special meeting to deal with something, we can do that quickly. Victor, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick comment about the use of the tent. Can we get some sort of a guarantee from Cranes that they are not going to damage that surface? I'm hoping at some point in the future, perhaps that can be a pickleball court. And I wouldn't, I'd hate to have to repair any damage from Cranes.
Or better still, maybe we could have them resurface it when they leave.
I was hoping that was going to happen anyway. I believe that I have brought this up in the past, wondering whether or not we can get a lift of asphalt put on that as part of the rehabilitation project.
Tyson, can you negotiate that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm very good at negotiating, but we need money to be able to do negotiations. So I will, if that's a serious inquiry, that's definitely, we've got the time for it. We can have a new report and we can properly discuss that matter. But to answer your initial question, Victor, it's already in the contract. The wording's already there to make sure that the contractor doesn't damage the fence or the gate or the surface. But I will add a little more language now that they're going to be using that surface. I'll make sure there's an extra email that covers that kind of thing, but it's already been verbally agreed upon. So absolutely.
Thank you, Tyson.
Good. Okay, no other comments or concerns? Okay,
Thank you.
Great. All right, now I have a motion moved by Elwin Burke, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council received the March 12th, 2020 Eastern Ontario Trail Alliance Board minutes for information. Any discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone objecting? Motion carried. I have a motion moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. The council received the following correspondence for information, and it's 1, 2, and 3 in your package. Any discussion? Is there anyone voting against the motion? Motion's carried. Now I have a motion that's going to need some writing in. Moved by Nikki Gowdy and seconded by Brent Cameron, that council received the email correspondence from Christopher Charlebois to the CAO clerk for information, and further that. So let's discuss this one. Kathy, do you want to speak to this?
All right, just unmuted myself. Yes, as council certainly is aware, with the Christopher Charlebois is looking at putting a chip truck. He purchased the one that was at the beer store. Anyway, he purchased it and wants to move it, and he has permission from John Wemp, who is further down on Highway 7, to put it on that property. John certainly has, and I've had discussions with John, is certainly in favor of him using that property. The as we know, the concern is that chip trucks are not permitted within the municipality unless they have to go through the normal procedures, which is to rezone the property to allow it. Because our official plan or zoning bylaws, it's not in there. I know there was concerns, and certainly Chris Charlebois has made comments in regards to in the emails about how come everyone else and all those other ones that have been put in there. But like, for instance, the one at Matson's, it was, it's put, but they did a zone change, you know, because they were also, though, I think they threw the chip truck in to allow them time, because their main focus was getting their building up to have a, you know, for store and gas tanks and everything. So that's in their case. The other one was in regards to the one at Lori Love's out at Godfrey, but that one there was always a chip truck there. So that's why it was allowed to be there. And I think that he certainly questioned, and I know I've had questions in regards when they're asking about grandfather, and of course we cannot grandfather it. The other was because the natives had they didn't have a chip truck, of course, they had the smoke shop there, which is no longer there, as well as I think in the summertime there, they were selling produce, you know, farmers' produce and stuff out of that, on that site as well. And I think that was some of the concerns, but I think that at the time, and I'd have to check with Joe Gallivan a little further, because him and I have had a few discussions in regards to this, is of course, at that point, I don't think the natives had to get any kind of permits from us, or, you know, go through the zone change. Because I know if their native center that they've got built up on Highway 7, they didn't need building permits or any of those things. So, I mean, we can answer some of those, certainly those questions for him. I think he wants to get it running because of the summer, and certainly with the pandemic and more opportunities, because of course it's a chip truck. He wouldn't be able to have, you know, it'd be just takeout, like I think some of the other restaurants and things that have been doing that as well. I mean, there is an option certainly with council, and I think if you remember back when we had the open houses, there was lots of discussion, and I know Joe is working still on the official plan about the pilot project that the town of Petawawa had done. And that's where they allowed for chip truck, very specific, just for a certain period of time as a pilot. Now that is also an option that council can certainly look at, and we could have Joe talk further about that. And so that's where it is at this point. So as you know, we do not permit them. And I mean, when he purchased it from the owners at present that had it at the beer store, was that they were made aware that owner, I sent them a letter to further explain to them if it was removed off that property, it would have to be rezoned. Because they had that discussion. Rachel Scott had that discussion also with Joe Gallivan as well. So I think that that's where we're at in this situation. Is I think they're quite upset about the whole idea of not having to, about just going ahead and allowing to do that. Now, I mean, the other option is certainly, we didn't put any options really in it. It's more of a discussion as to how council wishes to proceed with this, is that you know, you could put a proviso in if we want to do something like Petawawa did as a pilot, and then as provided that he apply and get all his, because he has to talk to MTO as well, as to, because of the entrances, you know, that, you know, you allow it for maybe a certain period of time, provided he has started to already fill out all his applications. He's going through the process for his rezoning, as well as with the MTO. So that's all I have to say on this subject at this point.
Madam Mayor, Bill here. My feeling on this is that because this was in business last year, just happened to be another location 300 meters up the road. I think this is actually a better location for that, because it's not going to be competing with the Subway shop that's right there, or the food outlet that's actually happening at the Ultramar. I think we should do whatever we can to accommodate them. And I like Kathy's suggestion in regard to giving them an option that yes, you can open, but you have to take these steps, and you've got a time frame in which to complete those, or you will be forced to close, or you won't be able to open next year if you don't go through these steps. So I'm in favor of getting them up and running as soon as possible, because he really has quite an investment there. So
I just want to caution us, though, that our official plan does not allow chip trucks, and that unless this person does the zoning application and pays the money and starts the process, if we let him open, it will be similar to the one at the beer store, that it created a problem and we could not get it out of there. So I think we need to have the discussion. One, are we going to allow chip trucks, and how are we going to allow them? What are they going to pay? And all of those discussions still need to happen. We kind of left that all up in the air.
that's right, Madam Mayor. But in the meantime, we still do not have a chip wagon bylaw in place at this point. So we're sort of in limbo here. And, that's really why I'm saying
our official plan very clearly says no chip wagons.
Madam Mayor, it's Victor here.
Victor.
With the draft official plan, was there going to be the possibility that they would be allowed with certain restrictions? And if we go ahead with that idea of allowing them with restrictions, would it be possible to say to Mr. Charlebois, yes, you may open if you follow these, if you apply for the building or for the zoning or rezoning, and you do the MTO stuff. However, in the future, our official plan is going to have restrictions that is going to prevent you from opening next year. Could we go that way?
Could I speak and mention to you as well, is I think the time when Joe came to council in regards to the whole food truck refreshment stand and the controls, he did ask council, he gave us two options, and that's where he was directed to prepare the official plan with policies in it to deal with food trucks or refreshments. So, I mean, he is working on the official plan. That is in the new one, like he is preparing, getting it ready. But I mean, council actually passed the resolution to include that proviso in that official plan. So I think until we get to that point, so yeah, you're right, Victor, that there was comments in regards to us having that put into the official plan. It's just, yes, Joe hasn't had it finished yet.
And we talked about licensing them and making sure that the amount would be similar to a food place that was paying taxes. Because that was one of the big arguments from the business owners, is that we pay taxes, we hire people, and a chip truck gets a free ride.
Yeah, there was quite a bit discussions, but he was going to put that into the options into the official plan, or we can certainly have maybe Joe really attend the next meeting to provide a little further directions or some little further options for council in regards to that pilot for Petawawa, and whether or not we could go forth if he pays for all his application fees, his process. He's already started on the process for zoning bylaw meeting and doing all those things. That's something that council can certainly make a decision on.
So he started the process, but he's not very far into the process?
From what I understand, I didn't ask Crystal if he's actually formally come in. Crystal did meet with him, went through the applications from what I understand, and is contacting MTO.
I don't believe he submitted a formal application or submitted any funds at this point.
All right. I think he just.
Sorry. My concern is just that we have consistent expectations. I'm just thinking back as to when we were approached by another chip wagon at Highway 7. Would we be expecting the same of them? Because they did get frustrated and not put it there. So would we be having the same expectations across the board?
Very good point. And Jeff Matson had to do a site plan, and I know it was part of the bigger picture, but he did have to go through that process, similar to this person having to go through zoning change. So maybe what we need to suggest is that once he has his zoning papers done and he's paid his money and the process is well underway, that we would review where we're at as far as opening. But I'm afraid if we let him open first and nothing gets done, we're just setting ourselves up for trouble.
Like, what kind of time frame are we looking at here, Your Worship? If we do that, I kind of agree with what you're saying there, but if this process is going to take 1 or 2 months to get going, then that's going to ruin his whole summer.
How many more people are going to come up with a chip truck and want to put it in too, though? That's the thing.
Well, I can tell you, yes, whether you come to a zoning bylaw amendment, he's going to be looking at at least 2 or 3 months by the time because it's part of he's got to get the application filled out, do that, get it to the planners to prepare. It has to go to a public meeting, so you're looking at least 20 days notice for the public meeting.
Well, maybe we should put that to him, and if he's contented to do that, then that starts the process, and then he'd be good for 2021, and maybe pick up a little bit of the season in 2020.
So, but that's sort of the process.
It is unfortunate, but you know, when you buy something, you need to know what the steps are to get things going. And unfortunately, something got missed with this application. But I think we have to be very fair in how we deal with them all. We need to get the processes down, and that's what we need to follow.
And he was certainly well aware, because I know that I did speak to him about 6 months ago.
Okay, well then I agree with Fran, then if he goes ahead, he has to go ahead and start the process, and then go from there. If it's 2 months, it's 2 months.
So what we need to say in the motion is, and further that.
Mr. Charlebois can continue the process in which to maintain the zone change.
That the applicant, yes, yeah.
We'll continue with the zoning change
process.
Well, he hasn't, that the applicant started, I don't think he even started it yet, has he?
No, he's got the papers, but I think I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think we need to.
But are we going to require that the zoning amendment is complete before he opens, or certain steps are complete, or he pays the fee? Is that good enough? At what point do we allow him to open?
Well, with zoning, people have an opportunity to oppose, right, Kathy?
Yes, they do, because there'll be public meetings. So
you really can't let him do anything. He's going to oppose it. And then if that's the case, then I think everything has to wait until the objections are dealt with. Otherwise, you'll end up with a LPAT appeal.
Okay, understood.
So we'll continue with the zoning change and satisfactory completion.
Well, he's got to have it complete. It's going to have to be the formal. Yeah, he's got to have formally complete. Everything's not just the paperwork completed. The whole process has to be completed.
Okay, process prior to opening his chip
truck. Yeah.
The concern I have, Madam Mayor, is that this gentleman, if he starts the process and we say, okay, you can go ahead and open, and then if something happens along the way that somebody objects, that holds up the process, he may have actually invested further in inventory, which in turn could end up spoiling because he's not using it. So I think it's important from his perspective to understand the steps that are necessary and where the starting gate is for his business so he can plan accordingly.
I think he has been told the process by a number of people at this point, and it's a matter of him following through.
That's correct.
basically what council is saying is we have an official plan and we need to follow it. And that says you must have a zoning change and have satisfactory completion of that prior to opening the chip truck. Like, chip trucks are fantastic, but there is a process they have to adhere to get there. Brent?
Correct.
You have a comment, Brent?
He's muted.
He's muted.
Okay.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I totally agree with you. We need to have a level playing field, and as frustrating as it may be, you know, we can't be in a situation where we're telling different people different things. We need to be standard and uniform. I know that when the official plan comes about, we're going to have a more fulsome policy on this, and you know, we do support in principle food trucks, but you know, and I feel for this gentleman, but you know what happens with the people that have come to us before, and the people, you know, and again, people start getting different treatments. We do have to be standard and uniform in this.
Yes, for sure. Okay, any other comments? So I will reread the motion since Nikki and Brent both moved and seconded. That council received the email correspondence from Christopher Charlebois to the CAO clerk for information, and further that Mr. Charlebois will continue with the zoning change and satisfactory completion of the process prior to opening the chip truck. Chip truck, chip wagon, what's the proper term?
Well, I think it says, I think you can say, I think you can just put chip truck in it, because I mean, it is a food establishment or something that I think Joe has under the bylaw.
Okay, maybe I'll go / food truck.
Yeah, food truck / refreshment vehicle.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, refreshment vehicle. Okay, so that little addition of chip truck / food truck / refreshment vehicle ends the sentence. Okay, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Okay. Next, we have a motion moved by Bill McDonald and seconded by Sherry Watt. Whereas North Frontenac Telephone sent an email on May 28th, 2020, requesting a letter of support from the municipality in their application to the CRTC Broadband Fund. And whereas the funding will assist constructing a new fiber optic network for the Township of Central Frontenac. And whereas the deadline for application was June 1st, 2020, prior to a meeting of council. And whereas the proposed fiber optic network build will provide underserved areas with access to competitively priced high-speed broadband services for our municipality. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council ratify the letter of support, which was forwarded to North Frontenac Telephone Company on June 1st, 2020. Kathy and I made an executive decision since our previous discussions have all been very positive to support improved broadband, and we went ahead and sent the letter knowing that you would support us.
Now that we know with the province and everything is putting in a lot of money into broadband now, so it may help.
So, any discussion on the motion? Just an aside, I am meeting with Mr. Stroud, I believe his name is, from North Frontenac Telephone tomorrow, just to find out more about what they're doing. Okay, anybody voting no? Hearing no no's, motion's carried. Okay. Are there any public meetings? No? Bylaws or agreements or notices of motions? Any giving of notices of motion?
No.
Is there any new or other business?
No.
Okay. We are now going to move into closed session. So I will read the motion first, and then Cindy can give us direction of what we have to go out of and back into. So I have a motion moved by Victor Hayes and seconded by Owen Burke. One, I think this should say that we move into closed session. One is for potential litigation matters before an administrative tribunal. Fire department. Procol board pursuant to section 292A, road allowance between concession 10 and 11 Olden. 4, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, municipality or local board pursuant to section 239-2C, part lots 8 and 9, concession 8 Kennebec. Number 5, a position plan procedure instruction to be applied to or local board pursuant to section 239-2K. Okay. So, Cindy, what do we do now?
Before everyone leaves, I'll just remind, just to remind everyone, we're going to all leave this meeting. You should have received the closed session invite from me earlier today. I think it was around 1 o'clock or 1:30. So we can log back into that, and I will be texting Deputy Chief Riddell to join the first part of that meeting, and then we will close out of that meeting. I will send a new invite out for going back into open session. So does anybody have any questions, or did anybody not get the email with the invite for closed session? Good. Okay. Well,
Okay.
we'll convene for now, and I'll open up the other meeting.
Okay.